Hi, and welcome to The Spin Out. I'm so excited to welcome our guest, Laetitia Andrac, today to our podcast. Laetitia is the CEO and co-founder of Understanding Zoe, an AI-powered platform providing neuro-affirmative support for families raising neurodivergent children. A neurodivergent woman and mother of two neurodivergent daughters, Laetitia brings over 15 years of experience in strategy and innovation, including her role as former general manager at Telstra and as a strategy consultant with Deloitte. She is a best-selling author, international speaker, and host of her own podcast, The Neurodivergent Pulse. Understanding Zoe recently completed Australia's largest study on neurodivergent families. Understanding Zoe recently completed Australia's largest study on neurodivergent families, published as the white paper Making the Invisible Visible in November 2025. Through her work, Laetitia champions moving from deficit to strength-based models, creating neuro-affirming systems rather than compliance-based solutions. Welcome, Laetitia. Hi, Laetitia. Welcome to the Spin Out podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Susan, for having me.
So we met about a year ago now at an event in Sydney, and we were sitting next to each other, didn't know anything about each other, and started chatting as women founders do. And it was so lovely to meet you then and then watch your journey over the last year. And we've both had big journeys over the last year. So it's really great to have you here today so we can unpack all of that and tell people all about it.
Yes, I am really excited for this.
So why don't we start by talking about what is Understanding Zoe?
Sure. So Understanding Zoe is my latest venture, my latest business, which I founded out of a personal pain. So my husband and I, we were finding ourselves completely lost in the maze of raising a child who doesn't fit the norm. She is neurodivergent, and when we got her assessment and all of the information and managing different support worker, but also therapists and support teacher, and so on, the communication and the coordination was taking a lot of our time and energy, and we were feeling really lost. And so we put together a solution to help Zoe's teacher and everyone in her support village. And we called it Understanding Zoe, and we just shared it with them. And very quickly, everyone was like, oh my gosh, you need to build this for more families. We know so many families who will need this. So that's how Understanding Zoe started. It's the first AI-powered platform that supports families in understanding their children and making sure that everyone who surrounds them understand them better. It's available on any platform, from your laptop to your mobile to your tablet.
And how old was your daughter when you had her diagnosis?
So the first one was when she was 2.5, then 4.5. And then the one which encouraged us to create Understanding Zoe, she was about 5.5, 6-year-old when she got this diagnosis. And then when she was about 7.5, 8-year-old, we were really struggling. And that's when we founded Understanding Zoe for her.
And when you say, help you understand everything that you needed to understand, was that just in terms of, how to raise her, or is it about navigating like the NDIS, which is the Australian National Disability Program, for families to be able to access funding? Because our podcast goes all over the world now. So in Australia, we have a program that does support families with money, and it's a very, very complex system to try and navigate and get any kind of paperwork through. So was it for both sides of that you're
Very good question. So the first element was really understanding her and her assessment, and also all the different notes we were getting and recommendation from the different therapists that were surrounding her care, to make sure that then we were doing the right thing at home, but also giving access to those core informations and strategies to her teacher, her support workers, so then the continuity of care would be ensured. So that was the first thing, understanding all of this, because there is a lot of research that has been done, and an assessment is written in a language of year 11, and above. So it's really not above, like beyond. I don't know how you say it. Like now I'm struggling with my English. So it was really hard for us to grasp all of the language, being non-native English speaker and not expert in the clinical terms and not expert in understanding really what she needed. So really dumbing it down, if you allow me to use that word, and really helping us understand everything, but also making sure that everyone who surrounds Zoe is acting from the same place of understanding, acting from the same information rather than making up information. Because as we love to say, when you meet an autistic person, you meet one autistic person, and every autistic individual is different because we are on a spectrum. So I am autistic, my daughter is autistic, but we are very different autistic individual. And I think this is an important nuance that Understanding Zoe is enable. We move beyond biases because people will understand that individual rather than using any bias and stigma that they may have in their mind. And also regarding the navigation of the NDIS, we don't so much help with that, but what we do is, for instance, if you have to create an impact statement to submit to the NDIS, so an impact statement is explaining how raising a child with a disability may impact your life, your work, and so on and so forth. And this can be quite tricky to write because you have to go through all of the things that goes wrong, so it can open some wounds. So rather than having to do it yourself, Understanding Zoe will create it for you based on all the information that it has. So you're not kind of revisiting all of that. It's pre-created for you. And then, of course, as always, you can re-edit and adjust. So really trying to remove any mental load that you have when you raise a child. And this mental load is exponentially higher when you raise a child with a disability.
The mental load is enormous regardless, I think, raising children. And so, if you're trying to, facing what you've been facing as well, on top of that, I just could not even imagine how difficult that would be. And it must be, the teachers must love this tool as well, because it's so hard, I think, for teachers to, be managing all different children and coming from different backgrounds and all of the things, as well as dealing with a disability. So be able to have all of that information there easily for them must be, something that's really welcomed.
Definitely. Like Zoe's teacher. So initially we really developed it for us and her teacher and support worker and therapist. And Zoe teacher was the first one sending us an email 2 weeks after using Understanding Zoe, because we were not thinking it would become what it is now, a business. It was really just, we are both geeky with my husband, and I was a general manager in big data and AI in a big telecommunication company. So I knew about how to build stuff, my husband as well. So we just built this, and really with the idea that this is going to help us, Zoe, and everyone who surrounds Zoe. And Zoe's teacher, 2 weeks after using it, sent us an email and was like, this is changing everything. I just realized that I was adding more demand on Zoe, that I was acting from a place of thinking rather than really connecting and understanding and discovering and being curious. So all of that really helped. And she's been a huge support in our journey with Understanding Zoe. And of course, I'm sharing this with her permission. She was always like, please do share with everyone how it changed everything for me. And also something to know is teachers are unfortunately having not much training about children who are neurodivergent. And as you said, they have children who are neurodivergent, and each of them having different needs. So it's really hard for them to know, okay, so this child needs this, and then this child needs this. Whereas now with Understanding Zoe, they just have this quick ability to ask a question and get the answer. And so that they can ask and do the right thing for each child individually, whilst looking at all the classroom and making sure the whole classroom is working in harmony.
It seems like so difficult for teachers in terms of, so much of the diagnosis journey as well, I think, is put onto teachers. If they're not getting training in this space, like, it must be so difficult for them to be able to identify that and do those things if they're not getting that access to that.
Yeah, so lots of research has been done in terms of the loads that they take on, and about 70% of teachers say that they are under-equipped to address and support children with special needs. So we know that there is a gap here, and until this gap is fixed, the children and the teacher and the parents and the community are the ones suffering. And as I always love to say, is a child who is autistic or ADHD or dyslexic or having, any other disability will grow up as an adult. So we need to look at supporting everyone in that journey so that when they grow up as an adult, they grow up as an adult that can really contribute to their best capacity, rather than having other elements that will add on to the disability. What we know is a child that is misunderstood in their childhood may then have mental health issues when they grow up, or may have other co-occurring issues that will develop because they haven't been understood when they were younger. So the risk of self-harm, for instance, in children who are autistic is 160% higher. So those are the data that I was looking at before creating Understanding Zoe. I was having this kind of pressure of doing the best I could as Zoe's mom, and also having grown up as an autistic woman who was not identified until later in life. I knew how much I took in and how it would have been greater for me to have the support that I needed when I was younger.
Amazing. And I love that it was your teacher saying to you, the impact that it's had for her that made you go, maybe I could make a business out of this. Is that, tell us about that. What sort of happened in that journey so far? Because how long did you say you've been in with having it be a business? About 2 years?
So Understanding Zoe incorporated in August 2024. So a year and a half now, about a year and a half. And we started it for Zoe just herself in May 2024. So after we shared it with her teacher, her support village and so on, and receiving those emails and those feedback, we had some families connecting with us and being like, can you build this for us? So we started building it for about 10 families. And that's when we were like, that's costing us quite a lot of money to maintain all of this. It was before, all of the API were cheaper with large language modeling. So we're like, yeah, great, we're doing something good for everyone, but we need to find a way to not, dip all of our finances in this. So that's when we decided to just give it a go. So our way to give it a go was applying to Techstars. And when we were selected to be part of the Techstar cohort of 2024, which was starting in September 2024, that's when we were like, okay, let's incorporate it. Let's go through Techstars and then let's see. So we actually launched the product to market in December 2024.
Wow. So
it's been a year and a month.
Oh, that's awesome. So Techstars kind of, pushed you in your journey to get going. It's really interesting because when people say to me now, what do you wish you knew at the beginning? And I always say, go and be part of some kind of accelerator program, which is what Techstars is, because, I think if I'd have had that in the beginning, I would have taken such a different journey in growing and building the company, because I just never had access to anything like that. That wasn't really around kind of, 15 years ago when I was thinking about this business. And so what's the journey been like since then? When did you start, actually being able to, give the app out to users and all of that sort of thing?
Yes, sure. So we went through the journey of Techstars, and what I always say is when you join an accelerator, it's like choosing the right one, and Techstar was the right one for us at the point in time of our journey. If it would have been a bit later, maybe it would have been better to join another program. So really thinking about, I'm not kind of saying here everyone should go through Techstars. It really depends where you were in your journey. For us, we only had this MVP that we had developed for our own family and then shared it with 10 other families. So we are very early on. So it was really valuable for us to go through that journey of acceleration and having the right support and the different mentors and so on and so forth. So
that's a really important point, because I, have done some accelerators in the last year and a half that have been very early, startup kind of phase. And because I didn't do them early on, I thought, I'll just do them. And I was way too far ahead to be, involved in those. And so I think, one of the things that I did last year, which was an Ignite and Scale program, was really aimed at businesses that were the same size as us, and so you're building networks also through that who, people who are going through the same kinds of issues. And so I think that's really important, finding the right one for where you are at your stage of your journey.
Completely. And this is where, I didn't want to just push Techstars because it's really for early stage. So I just want everyone who is listening to this, if you are a business owner, to think about where you are in your journey, because the benefit of being, as you said, in a group where everyone is more or less at the same stage is then you can help each other, you can relate with one another, you can really have those deep conversations that are meaningful. And we know how entrepreneurship can be lonely. And so it's really important. And the cohort that we had when I did it in 2024 was a very diverse cohort. I think we had out of 12 startups, 11 of them were women-led. So, and amazing. Many of the founders were above 30, 35. So it was not, the 20-year-old person coming out of uni. So where it's harder to relate when you're a mom of 2 kids and, having had a career before and now launching your own startup. So it was really
juggle doing a startup and being a parent and
Yes. So then what happened is we finished Techstar in December. That's when we launched the app to market. And since then, we've been growing our app user base, but also growing our thought leadership. So we did, in November last year, we published the first ever research on 1,091 families to understand the hidden invisible load of raising children and raising children who are neurodivergent. So really looking at the parallel between parents who are raising children who already have opportunities that are taken away from them in the corporate life, and so on and so forth, but then adding another lens around the parents who are raising neurodivergent children, who then we know that many mothers will leave the workforce. We know that they are taking on 33 hours a week of extra load compared to other parents. So it's like another job in itself. So really thinking about all of this, and we wanted to showcase this invisible load because until you measure it, no one sees it. So, and I couldn't find any data when I was working through my pitch deck, when I was working through sharing with people my lived experience. It was just my own lived experience, whereas now data from thousands of families across Australia are backing my lived experience and sharing their own lived experience. So we did this big research. And for 2026, our ambition is to do again that research and expand into clinical trial and doing even more of the assessment part within the app and helping families having a greater support from the get-go.
Yeah, that's so interesting about, people having to leave their careers if in this space, because we have a lot of our contractors, our laundry partners who join us are often, dealing with neurodivergent children or special needs children that, and they have left their career because they couldn't get time off to take an appointment, and you have a lot of extra appointments when you have a child with special needs. And trying to get permission to get that time off every time is impossible, as well as everything else that you're trying to deal with. And so our business model gives that flexibility for them to be able to manage some of those things, and I think that's why we do attract a lot of people who a lot of parents who have children or parents or anyone that they're dealing with who have special needs that they're trying to, look after and do all of that. So yeah, that's a really interesting finding that you got from that report.
Yeah, there is lots of data that I'm sure they would relate to if you share with them the research. And one of them really being the fact that lots of women are looking at creating their own business or being on part-time work or quitting work for a certain period of time. So that's really what came out. So it was really highlighting my own lived experience, because I was a general manager in a big corporate and I was offered an executive director role, which I refused because I couldn't stay on 4 days a week, and I needed to stay on 4 days a week for this extra day of taking my child to therapy, for, you know, giving space for all of the admin elements that come, and all of these kind of elements. So I basically created my own business, which was before Understanding Zoe. I had another business, a consulting business. So I was doing consulting in my own time and really creating this life by design that I needed to support myself and my family.
And so what's your goal with Understanding Zoe? Do you want to go beyond Australia? You want to go international with it? Where you want to grow, you know, what's your big plans for the business?
Oh, thank you for asking this question. So Understanding Zoe is already available outside of Australia. So anyone can download the app in Canada, in the US, and I forgot another country right now. We are ISO 27001 certified, which is a certification that is recognized internationally around cybersecurity and encryption of data and making sure that we do everything in the right way. So we already think global from the get-go, and we have users also outside of those countries. We use a web app version. But in our next release of the app, we will release everywhere in the world on the App Store, not just limiting to Canada, the US, and Australia, and the other country, which I'm forgetting now. And we also had a few meetings in France when we were in France over Christmas. So there is an opportunity there. I'm going to Dubai.
That's where your accent's from, French?
Exactly. That's where my accent is from. And I'm going to Dubai next week for the World Health Conference. So we're really exploring the expansion globally, because what we learned through our research in the last year, it's not just a problem that happened in Australia, the misunderstanding of those children, the misunderstanding of neurodivergence as a whole. It's really something that is a global issue where we need to understand every neurodivergent folks better, so that we can create a world that is truly inclusive, and that then will create a greater society. Because when we are all harnessing everyone's gifts in the world, we know we create a better world. So really looking at the global approach. So for me, my big vision is really making sure that everyone with neurodivergent is finally seen, heard, and understood. So it's 20% of the population right now who identify as neurodivergent, which is 1.6 billion people. So I really want every one of them, whether it's through Understanding Zoe or through the advocacy work that I'm doing for the community, to really feel finally seen and not hidden, because we call us being the hidden 20%. And I think we can't create a society where 20% of the people are hidden.
That's amazing. I love that. And you, really excitingly, last year, I saw your announcement that you raised investment, and super exciting, because I think when we met in Sydney, we were both in the depths of that, of trying to, you know, raise money, and it's really, really tough as a woman to do that for a business. So tell us about that experience and the outcome of that, which was announced.
Yeah, sure. So something that I will preface by saying is, the data are against us when we are women-led businesses raising funds. So if you're a woman by yourself raising money like you did, Susan, it's 1.5% of the funding goes to you. I was in a
I felt that in the raise, for sure.
Yeah, I imagine. And I was with intersectionality playing as well. So being disabled, being from a culturally diverse background, so being a CALD, all of that affect the raise journey. So it's really, and I'm not saying that to discourage any woman from culturally diverse background or disabled or LGBTQIA+, all of those elements will impact on the raise. But if you find the right investor, all of this will be forgotten. And that's what happened with us. Verge Health Tech Fund was a really aligned investor. They're based out of Singapore. They specialize in health tech and impact. So they really saw what we were doing and how we were doing it. And from the get-go, we had very healthy and very beautiful relationship and conversations. And the whole journey with Verge started through them, one of their managing director mentoring me through a program that I did. I was top 10 finalist in APAC around global social impact. And through that program, we had mentors in different countries, and she chose to mentor me. And they were usually investing in startups who were more advanced, more at a Series A level, or startup who were, a bit later in their journey. So I really had those conversations as a mentor, really not thinking they would invest in us. So very transparent, very honest, very beautiful. And then at the end of the mentoring, the 3 months mentoring, they offered to take me through their due diligence. And that's when the conversation shifted from mentoring to investor. And this is a different experience when you move into the due diligence.
Did you start thinking, oh no, I said too much when we were doing the mentoring relationship? Let me go back and change that.
Yeah, so exactly. It's like, oh my gosh, I was so transparent about this and that. But I think that's where the trust was built. So what I want to say about my experience is I think finding people who are a match, who understand your business because they potentially have lived experience themselves, they understand the problem you're really trying to solve, rather than having to educate an investor around why is this a problem. And I remember having some conversation with some investors after, starting the conversation and seeing that potentially I will have a lead investor, where there were some investors who I had to convince. I had to show them that it was a problem that I was solving. And then you start from that place of preventative question, which maybe you've mentioned, Susan, at some point on your podcast. There is promotional and preventative question. Promotional questions tend to be asked more to the founder who are male, which is really about, tell me about your business. It's so exciting. How are you going to grow it to $1 million or $10 million or $100 million or $1 billion unicorn? Whereas as women, we face more preventative questions, which are around, how is that a problem? How are you going to compete with a saturating market? How will you reach this target? It's just very different questions. So you start from the back foot. So I was really aware of the biases and the way the investor were asking questions. And that really helped me to then be like, not a match. Yes, a match. Let's keep going, and so on and so forth. So I really had a great experience in terms of our conversation and working with Verge. But I didn't have such a great experience with some investor who claimed to be, we invest in women, we invest in impact, but I know it's just kind of a tagline. Then in the end, when you kind of go under the surface, it's not really the case. So I just want to call out here that build relationship first. It's what everyone will tell you. It's like ask for advice rather than money, and take time to build those relationships, because if you just go to an investor and ask for money, it's not going to happen. Whereas if you've built the relationship, if you've built the trust, and if you're ready to have them on your cap table, have them on your board, potentially have them helping your business, you need to make sure that it's a real partnership. They're the right person for you. And for me, I was grateful I found Verge, and it's a beautiful partnership. But I would say it's not always easy, the journey of going through that.
I love everything that you said. Then I can completely resonate, because I feel like my experience was very similar. And so it's nice to hear it from someone else that, experiencing those same things of, the pushback and the questioning of, is this a real problem? We were getting that around laundry, and it's unless they're doing their laundry themselves and know the pain of doing that over and over again and all of those kinds of things, it can be really, really difficult to be able to, tell that story. But like you said, it's about finding the right person and the right partnership,
Exactly.
and you it's like getting married. You want to find the right. You're going to be with this investor or this person for a long time. So getting that relationship right is really important. And so you got there though. You got the investment, and it was quite a sizable investment too. I think it was kind of similar to the investment that we raised. And so, what's your intention with that raise now? What are you doing with that?
So we're going to use the funds to, first of all, have a product-led growth. So we know that our first version of the product that we release, we are ashamed of it, and this is what everyone will tell you.
If you're not ashamed of your first one, then you're not doing it right, is what I've heard.
Exactly. We're releasing it too late, and so that's the LinkedIn founder who really said that early on. So we were very ashamed of our first version. So we are going through a full rebuild. So by mid to end of March, we'll have a fully new fleshed product. So it will be even easier. The UI, the user interface will also be friendly to adult, because we are expanding to adult as well as of mid-March to end of March, because we looked at the data and we have a large percentage of our users who are adults themselves, using the platform for themselves, even though right now it says add your child and everything is about your child. People forgive us for that, and they still use it for themselves to save in our safe, because we are ISO certified, in our safe vault, all of their core information, but then ask question about their medication and ask question and share it with their partner, their support workers. So adults are also using the platform. So we're redesigning the app to make it adult friendly as well. So we're going to expand from children to adults to the whole neurodivergent community. We are also improving our AI with more adult friendly information as well. So we're working on that. So the fund will be used to that. The fund will also be used for clinical trials. So really partnering with researcher. When you are in the health tech space, when you build a health tech product, it's very important to build it with clinical advice, which we had from the get-go. We have a clinical team that is helping us building Understanding Zoe, but starting clinical trials is actually very important to validate the benefit of Understanding Zoe. So it will be used for that. And the third big bucket will be the expansion internationally. So thinking about what is the next market and how do we get there. So we will need to chat offline, Susan, about Canada. So as our next market, we have a few markets right now that we are considering, and we're just kind of validating our assumptions and then opening very strongly one or two markets in the next few months. So that's the use of the fund. So really, really clearly mapped out. I would say,
do you have to change your content for international markets, or more the app that needs to be changed for international markets? How does that work?
No, for international market, everything can stay the same. In the new build that we are working on, it's really about being global and agnostic of any market. Neurodivergence is really something that is approached everywhere in the same way. The only thing that would be different is things that are NDIS specific, and then you move to the UK and it's called SEND, and then you move to France and it's called another name. So it's just kind of those specific information around helping people with the admin elements of the load that will need to be adjusted, but the rest is quite similar. Like you talk about ADHD, you talk about Down syndrome, you talk about autism, you talk about dyslexia in the same way in every country. So that's making it easier, because we're really looking at expanding around the whole neurodivergent umbrella across every country.
And that's amazing. I love that. And it sounds like we're on a similar journey with our international expansion. So coming back to being a mum, with a neurodivergent daughter, What's your tips through that? I mean, obviously you have an app and download the app and get all of that, but what's your tips in how you manage your day? And, you know, you're juggling this business, you're juggling being a mum, you're you know, you've got big plans. Like how do you manage your day? What helps you get through all of that?
Thank you for asking this question. And when I share an answer to this question, I always say it's really some things that I'm not perfect at. I'm not enlightened. I wrote a book 3 years ago, which is called Light It, How to Trust Your Intuition and Build a Thriving Business. And I said in that book, and I wrote in that book, and I repeated it since, that whatever I am doing, I am never perfect at doing it every day. So whichever advice I will share today, it's on a good day. I also have bad days, and you know, with the cycle of the moon, with my own inner cycle, you know, my bleed and so on, things vary. And with my own dynamic disability, things vary as well. My capacity will vary depending on the day. But the way I kind of really maintain a certain sanity and a way to stay here and be present in every aspect of my life is really having those pocket of ritual. So having those moments to myself, which can be as short as a quick cold shower. So then I know I'm very present. So a morning cold shower, I will need to take deep breath. I won't be thinking about anything else. I will just kind of be in my shower. And I know that in the shower, no one will disturb me. No one will come in and you know, because when you're a parent to a child who has a high anxiety, who needs lots of support, even, you know, sometimes when I go to the toilet, I may be disturbed, whereas in the shower, there is water everywhere. So it's like making me have this safe space to myself. So cold shower every morning really helps me ground myself, be present, connect to my breath. Then I love a barefoot walk. So I have a dog, which is called Cookie, who is lying on my feet right now. And going for a walk barefoot with Cookie during the day will really help me ground back and connect with nature and feeling the cycle of nature, which then allows me to feel into the cycle of life, the cycle in my business. It's not always summer, it's not always winter. So if sometimes it's a bit doom and gloomy, I know that then spring will arrive. And, you know, so really allowing myself to walk barefoot. And I encourage anyone who is comfortable doing that to do it, who has the ability to walk and has the ability to walk barefoot, to do it, because then you feel the season under your feet. You feel the soil being very cold in winter. You feel it when it's raining. You really kind of connecting with the elements. It's very raw, but that really helps me. And then a third thing that I do every single day is writing in my journal before I go to bed. And it's not about writing 100 pages or whatever. It can be writing just 3 bullet points about what am I truly grateful about, or writing a good moment in my day, writing something I'm proud of. So that's been like my own ritual. And then as a family, we have a ritual. We have a jar, which we've been using for the last 4 years, or 5 years. So we started it 5 years ago, and we write on these Post-it notes at the end of the day what we're grateful for. And then we put it on that jar, and then we can open it and look at those good moments of gratitude all together, rather than, you know, just remembering the moment of hardship.
I love that idea. I think I might do that. I always hear about that as an idea and think that's really, you know, because sometimes you just get so caught up in yelling at your children and trying to get them to do, you know, the right thing, that you forget that there's all these beautiful moments in amongst all of that as well. So
yeah, the jar thing, I saw a video 5 years ago about it, and that's when we started. And since we filled like so many jars, and we just love going back, you know, a few years back, what was happening. And Lou, my youngest, was very young, and it was often the same things that she would repeat. So it's very cute now looking at it and being like, look, every day you were saying the same thing. And really seeing the evolution now that she's a bit older. So I really encourage anyone listening to this to find some anchor, some rituals, some things that connect you with yourself, and then connect you with those who you have relationship with, whether it's a partner or a family or friends. Really, ritual are what makes us human. We've always had rituals in life, and I think it's all about bringing those rituals back into our life to add the rhythm to it.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that we do in our family, myself and my two boys, we sit at the dinner table every night when we eat dinner, and we say our highs and lows of the day. Usually someone copies someone else, but there's also, some really great things that come out of that, because having boys, they don't like to talk about their day. They don't give you more than just a grunt normally. So, forcing them to do that and forcing them to remember to also ask me my high and low of the day, because sometimes they forget that I'm a person as well. Yeah. So it's a really nice way for us to, make conversation at dinner, but also hear, some kind of small snippet of each other's day. So yeah, I love that in the rituals. And so one thing I want to ask you about having a neurodivergent child, I've heard people talk about, not looking at this as a deficit in their personality, but looking at it as a superpower. And I really love that analogy. And so is that something that you do? And tell us about what that would mean for you.
Thank you for asking this question. So for us in our own family, but also in our ethos of building Understanding Zoe, we embrace the neurodiversity affirming paradigm, which means that we are not seeing our own disability as something to be fixed. We are seeing it as something that makes us us. So it's really about, I'm left-handed as well. So I am left-handed and there is nothing to be fixed. Even for many years, people were trying to make you become right-handed. You are left-handed. It's about being who you are. So really thinking about this through that lens, which means for us, we don't see our own disability as a disorder or as a deficit. We just see it as something that the society and the system are not created for us. So it's about changing those systems, advocating for accommodation to be made. If you think about visible disability, someone in a wheelchair, you will create a ramp to enable them to go into a place. So how about for those who are invisible disability, we ask them and we create the right accommodation for them to also thrive in another ecosystem. So if you are light sensitive, installing dimmer, if you are noise sensitive, allowing headphone, all of those kind of accommodation can support people. And then it's not anymore a deficit or a disorder. It's just something that society made us feel like this. And if you go back to First Nation language, in First Nation language, in any dialect across Australia, there is no word for disability. So I think this is something that we need to embrace as we live in this country, acknowledging this beautiful lineage that is here, this wisdom from that land, from those people who were here way, way, way before us, about looking at disability not at something that is an issue with the individual, is just who they are and how can we create an environment where they can thrive. In terms of seeing it as a superpower, I have some resistance around this, because when we see it as a superpower, we dismiss the difficulties that we face every day. So I don't really see our neurodivergence as a superpower. I just see it as who we are. And in some moment, we can harness the gift of being neurodivergent, such as, for instance, for me would be my monotropic brain, because I'm autistic, so I can be hyper-focused in something. I will become an expert. I will know more than anyone else on the planet about it, because I have been going so deep and so focused for so long. But then I will potentially have moments where I shut down, where I will not be able to speak. I will become non-speaking for quite some time. I will need to have any deprivation of senses, which means I will need to be under a weighted blanket with no light, no sound, no smell, nothing for a few weeks to recover, or a few days. So I really don't see it as a superpower, because when we say it's a superpower, everyone thinks that then we don't struggle, whereas we really struggle. We have moments of high amazingness, but also moments of very high, low, low. So I really want people to understand that being neurodivergent is a dynamic disability. So you may have moments where you get the best of myself and you're like, oh my goodness, she's able to do all of those kind of things. It's quite incredible. And there are moments where I am actually really struggling with very simple things, like doing the laundry, for instance, or brushing my teeth, or having a shower will be too much of sensory input for me. So it's really some things that I want people to understand. It's knowing that you may not understand what we go through because it's not something that's visible, but we have definitely abilities that enable us to be incredible in many ways, but we also need more support for things that may be very trivial or very simple, but yet we may struggle with it. And it's different for everyone, as I said. Everyone under the neurodivergent umbrella will have different experiences and will have different struggles, but also different gifts. And so it really depends on the individual.
Oh, that's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's great for all of us to understand and know. And, you know, especially when you're talking about just understanding each other better, you know. And, you know, we do that kind of thing in the workplace. We do like disc profiling to look at, you know, what are the different personalities and how do we understand each other so we can work together better. And, you know, it's definitely comes back to that understanding of each other, understanding differences, you know, rather than looking, you know, labeling those different.
Exactly. It's this genuine curiosity that you can have for someone else. You know, when someone is disclosing being neurodivergent or disclosing anything about their life, being curious rather than assuming that this is a superpower or assuming that this is a deficit or assuming that, you know, really working beyond our biases. And we all have biases. I have lots of biases. I have internalized ableism for a long time, not allowing myself to ask for accommodation and just being like, no, I'm just going to push through. And then I will shut down, I will burn out, I will collapse. So really kind of knowing that we all have biases. It's about having the awareness that we may have at some point a bias coming through and holding our breath and being like, how can I be curious about this? How may I try and discover how I can best support that person? You know, if you work with someone who disclose about a disability, just being curious rather than being like, oh, so if they say they are, I don't know, they are dyslexics and this is what I need to put in place. Or if they say they have dyspraxia, oh, this is what I need to do. Ask them, what do you need? How can we best support you? How can we create an environment for you to feel safe, for you to feel supported, for you to do your best work, for you to be here and really enjoy the time that you spend with us. So I think it's really a shift from assuming, as you said, to curiosity.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And so coming back to women and women in business, and you've got a powerful belief that women who can have wealth, you know, can help make the world a better place. So tell us about that. Tell us about shifting your mindset from just making a living to creating wealth for impact.
So I absolutely love this question because I think we definitely need a mindset shift in women. And I believe that women who have wealth will do great things. We know that women who are leader of a business will create a positive impact in their team, but also in their community and more broadly in the whole ecosystem that is around them. So I really want people to think about how can I create generational wealth so that I can vote with my wallet, I can change society in a way that is aligned with my values and my beliefs. So I am really, I really want more women to be able to have the financial means to make those changes. We know that women will give more to foundation, women will give more back to society, women will be leaders that are supporting their team even more than men. And this is not against men being wealthy. It's about, let's think about how can we make more women wealthy so that we can change the paradigm in our society.
I love that because, our business is very connected to that also.
Yes.
And it's lovely to hear you put it so beautifully. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Laetitia. This has been such a lovely chat. I could just talk to you for hours and hours, but we are out of time. So thank you for being with us. Now, if our listeners want to check out Understanding Zoe, what do they do?
Thank you, Suzanne, for today. So if you're curious about Understanding Zoe, or if you want to share it with anyone that you know is neurodivergent or parenting neurodivergent children, you can go on our website, www.understandingzoealtogether.com. And if you want to follow us on social, we are on Instagram, understanding.zoe. We're on TikTok. We are on LinkedIn. We are pretty much everywhere, so you can follow us on social. And we also have our own podcast, which is called the Neurodivergent Pulse, where we interview clinicians, parents with lived experience, individuals with lived experience, to share about their own neurodivergence and how can we support a society that is more inclusive of all.
Awesome. We will share all those links as well in our post. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.